Greetings, tech enthusiasts. Welcome back to Full Stack Focus channel. This is hub for all things in tech. Today we are deep diving into the world of performance testing. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Vinodani, a seasoned full stack practitioner with over 17 plus years of hands-on experience in the IT realm. Today we are putting the pedal to the metal and exploring the industry of performance testing. Whether you are a QA practitioner or a developer or just someone curious about optimizing digital experience, you are in for a treat. In this video, we are going to learn the overall idea on performance testing. I have divided this session for a few subsections. Let's check out what are the subsections are. First subsection is what is performance testing? Why do we need performance testing? Type of performance testing, potential bottlenecks that we could identify during the performance test. Then, how do we analyze the performance test results? How do we report them? Also, how do we monitor them? Apart from that, we will discuss testing tools, supporting tools, and how it's work, and how do we define the performance testing objective. Let's begin. Let's try to understand what is performance testing is in first place. This is Tina. She wanted to watch a YouTube channel. What she does is she type YouTube URL in her browser and click on enter. Open her enter. YouTube servers are getting requests to load the YouTube page, and they do. Imagine YouTube has approximately 2.1 billion worldwide users. In a particular instance, not only one user trying to access the server, there will be a lot of users trying to access in a particular instance. In performance testing, what we do is we are trying to emulate this behavior with the virtual users and trying to identify potential bottlenecks comes along with the load and avoid them before release into the production before it occurs. Right. In simple word, we could say the performance testing is emulating real user behaviors with virtual users, and we could measure performance quality attribute along with it. If you're looking for a perfect definition for performance testing, we could give you a perfect definition with the help of ISTQB syllabus. As mentioned in the ISTQB syllabus, performance testing is an umbrella term including any kind of testing focused on performance of a system or a component under different volume of load, which means performance testing involved with the responsiveness of the system or a particular component that you are test with under load. Hope you get proper understanding on that. In the definition that we have discussed about the performance testing quality attributes, it is differ from the quality attributes that we measure when we do the QA testing. What are the quality attributes that we could measure in the performance testing? I have listed four main quality attributes here. The first one is the responsiveness. Responsiveness is the response time that we measure during the performance test that we indicate how long system take to respond to a particular action. Also, we have another quality attributes called throughput that indicate the number of transactions or requests the system can handle within given period of time. Also, we have another quality attribute called reliability. The reliability is the ability of a system to consistently perform the intended function without failure over a specific period or a given given conditions. Also, the last one is the scalability. Scalability is the system's ability to handle the increasing number of users or a transaction without showing any significant performance degradation. So those are the main four quality attributes that we are going to determine during the performance test. So far, we have learned what is performance testing and what are the quality attributes that we are going to measure during the performance test. Next, I would like to discuss what are the benefits that we could gain by doing a performance test. The first benefit that I could describe is engaging customers with better website speed. It it could be a website, it could be a mobile application. To engage your customer, you have to have a proper speed. If it's slow, users tend to leave the application. So that's the first benefit of doing a performance test. The second one is the faster website give, gain more revenue, generate more revenue than the slowest one because it will increase the customer base. The third one is it having a good performing application resolve glitch before it goes to the market. That means if you have a good if you have done a proper performance test before you go to the market, there will be lot of issues you could have identified before you release into the market, and you can resolve before it's go into the market, and there will be less glitch between. The fourth one is it will enhance the application robustness. Also, the fourth one is it will support market claims, and it will enhance the scalability of the application. Also, if you do performance testing before you release into the market, you can test on various technology stack and you can go ahead with best one. So these are the few benefits of doing performance testing. Let's see what are the type of performance testing be available in the market. The first one is the load test. As I mentioned before in the definition, performance testing is an umbrella term. So under this umbrella, there are a lot of different type of performance testing. First one is load test. Most of the people out there, most of the practitioners refer performance test as a load test, but performance test is the umbrella term, but the load test is the one item under this umbrella. Let's see what else we have. We have endurance test, we have stress test, that is the one type of performance test. We have spike test, we have point test. Also, we have volume test. These are the different type of performance testing. There are some other testing types also available, but these are the main things. So let's see if let's actually try to understand each one of these and get a proper understanding. This With this performance testing type, we are going to discuss the performance testing type definition. So before I discuss this definition, I would like to introduce few terms that we use in this definition. First one is virtual user. Virtual user mean the way we emulate real user behavior. So for this, we are we are using a script, we record all the real user behavior into a script and we are going to use it as a one single user. So the second term is the concurrent user. Concurrent user mean in a given time how many users are accessing the system and concurrently. So the third term is peak load. Peak load mean it has a border definition. When you have an application, the peak load is the maximum load that you could expect your application will get on a given time. So these are the three terms that I'm going to explain to you, and we are using this in our definition. So you will get proper understanding on this term when we discuss the definition. So let's begin. The load test. The first one. When it comes to the load test, we are going to test our application to see whether it works well with the expected load, which means peak load. In this test, we simulate our load, peak load for a small duration of time, example 20 minutes. With this test, we are trying to identify whether our system is stable enough to handle the peak load. If it's not stable, we could identify the root causes by measuring the quality attributes, quality attributes and the other facts like response time, server resources, network bandwidth, and database level. If we are properly catering for the peak load, we could go for the other test. Let's see what are the other tests are. The next one is the endurance test. Here our main observation is the duration. In the endurance test, we are trying to simulate our test for a 3 or 4 hours because which means extended duration, and we sustain the peak load or less and see how our system is behaving. With this test, we can identify whether our system is stable enough to handle the peak load for a longer period of time. With this test, there are a lot of root causes we could identify, such as memory leaks, resource shortage, response time spike, network bandwidth issues. With endurance test, we would certify our system is able to cater 24/7 and it will be available 24/7. If not, what then we could cater for that requirement. So the next test is stress test. Most of you have heard this test. This test is supposed to measure the scalability of the system. In this test, what we do is we start with a smaller amount of load and we gradually increase the load and see how our system behaving. As example, we can start our test with 1.0x. It's mean expected load, or maybe 0.5x. We can start there, we can sustain for a period of time, let's say 15 minutes, and we can observe our application. Then we can increase again for a 1x, which mean peak load, and we can keep there for a 15 minutes and see how it's behaving. And again, we can increase the system load 1.5x and we can keep 15 minutes and we can observe the system behavior. Likewise, we can gradually increase our load till we see a abnormal behavior of the system. So with this test, we can monitor the system behavior under increasing load condition. It will help to identify potential issues like memory leaks, synchronization issues, resource utilization issues, bandwidth issues. Likewise, there are a lot of indication that we can identify with the stress test. The next type of test is the spike test. This will help to determine how our application is behaving in extreme conditions and how whether our application could recover with those conditions. So in this test, what we do is we simulate a load. It could be a peak load or less. We are simulating peak load or less, and we apply extreme increment like 1000 newton cells for once. We apply extreme we decrease number of users suddenly, like remove 10, 100 users at once. Likewise, we apply extreme increment and extreme decrement and monitor the condition of the system. By doing this, we can really identify if our application get a sudden load, how it will handle the load. Then if there's any issues, we can address them beforehand. That will be really useful test. So the next test is the breakpoint test. With breakpoint test, we could apply load until the system get fair. That is not recommended way of testing, but in some cases it will be really helpful. S- So we can apply load till it's get fair and determine the impact of failure on the other systems and see how our application could improve with this identification. Also the volume test. It will also refer as a flood test. This will increase. Here we our load is the quantity of data. We increase the number of data to the system and we call volume of volume and see how with the time being we see how our application is behaving for the particular load. So these are the type of testing we have identify and discuss. Let's see what are the matrices could measure during these tests. By measuring response time, we can identify the latency. Also, we measure the throughput. We have already discussed what is the throughput is. Other than that, we can measure this read write rate that will indicate how many writes and read has happened. Also, we can monitor the resources like CPU, memory, and also we can measure the network bandwidth usage, and also we could do the database profiling during this test. With, with this input, we can conclude whether there's a bottleneck or whether there's a degradation of performance. And also, there are few more. One is peak response time, and also we can measure the error rates, and also we can measure the 90th percentile response time. It's mean 90th percentile response time in the sense we get the sample of 100%, we get the response time and we remove the uh, 5% from each side and we get the average of it. Then it will indicate the fair amount of fair value of response time. So now you have came. Okay, now we know what are the testing type and and also what are the things we should measure and why we should measure. Now let's learn what is performance testing process is. When it comes to the testing process, as you may have an idea now, so first thing we have done is load test. Why we do the load test? Because we are trying to identify whether our application is behaving correctly for the expected load. If it's behaving correct, then we could perform other tests like stress, spike, breakpoint, or endurance. If our system is not performing as expected at the load test, so we should not perform other tests like stress, spike, breakpoint, or endurance because it will not giving you a proper results. So first we have to pass the load test, then only we could go for the other tests which you can with this we can get proper understanding of the performance test. Before we do a load test, we have to identify the objective of the test. If we are trying to identify the scalability requirement of the system, your objective should be that. If you are trying to identify the response time of the system, the objective is that. Likewise, first you have to identify the objective of test and then what are the scenarios that you're going to test, then only you could start your testing process. Then once you identify the objective and the scenarios, you can create a test plan and a script for with the selected tool. Then you can do a test execution, then you can do an analysis. With the analysis you will get a results of bottlenecks or improvement areas. And also, if your application is performing as expected, you can get an idea on that too. This is the typical testing process for the performance. Let's see, to start the performance testing, what kind of prerequisite that you should have. You should have identified a test tool. You should have a test environment to test. Also, you should have a script. Also, you should have a test data. So we are going to discuss each of these and you will get a good understanding on how to do a performance test. We start with the testing tool. When we select the performance test tool, we should identify what kind of test that you're going to do. That's where defining objective is more important. There are main two performance testing type. Sorry. There are three main category of performance testing tool. First one is performance load generating tools. The second one is monitoring tool. The other one is log analysis tool. When it comes to the performance testing tool, there are different kind of performance testing tool based on your objective. But main two performance testing tools are front-end analysis tool and the server monitoring tool. There are tools for write code and do your test also. These are the main two areas that we cover with the performance testing. So these are the few examples of front-end performance testing tool. The first one is Chrome Analysis Chrome Lighthouse tool, which is available with Chrome browser. Then you can get a client-side, in other terms, for front-end performance with F12. Also, there's another tool called PageSpeed you can use as a front-end performance testing tool. So Fiddler also a good tool to use as a front-end performance testing tool. Let's see a client-server performance testing tool, which means in this tool we listen to the client-server communication of application and we get the idea how response time work and how other resources work, and you give you a proper report of it. So these are few front client server performance testing tool. First one is Apache JMeter. The second one is Load Runner. Also, we have NeoLoad. We have a Apica Load. We have a HP Performance Center, Locust K6. These are few client server performance testing tools you could use based on your requirement. JMeter is a open source tool which most of people are using for their performance testing purposes. There are lot of application monitoring tools. Out of them, these are few. First one is Asia Monitoring and Application Insight, and New Relic, App Dynamic, and Amazon CloudWatch. There's another tool. There are different type of performance testing levels in the sense where we perform the test. If you see the diagram here, it shows client server environment. If we say front end performance testing, it will perform on client side in a user's machine. If we say client server level performance testing, it will perform via client and server. Means we will analyze the interaction between client and server. Backend performance in the sense web application server performance, which I show here in the diagram. We can also do a database level performance, and also there apart from these types, there if you have a desktop based application, so you can perform desktop based performance testing. Also, if you have application which perform batch tasks, you can perform a batch task level performance testing. So these are few levels that we could perform performance testing. Mainly, we consider front end, client side, back end level performance testing are the main levels. So next up is we are gonna see how performance tool work. As we discussed in the previous slide, there are different type of performance testing levels. Most of the performance test tools are designed to work with client server level performance test. As example, most of the popular tools like JMeter, Load Runner, NeoLoad, Epicaload, or Performance Center, those tools are working in an environment of client server. Tool needs same setup to work. We we said we are performing performance tests with a virtual users. If I take this example in diagram here, you could see there is a user here. Here we are referring virtual user as a user. To simulate the real user behavior, we record real user interaction with the application into a script, and we do modify this script to act as a virtual user. And as part 2, we need a testing scenario and control machine. So this script will be uploaded into a control machine, and in this control machine they define how we are going to test. If you are going to perform a load test, then you have to set up 20 minutes of duration and number of users to simulate in your controller machine. Once you simulate set up these settings, you can start execution. Execution also has two main types. One is you can run your test directly from your local machine, or you can use a remote machine to execute your test, which means we can do a remote execution as well. In this example, I explain what is remote execution is. When it comes to remote execution, we need a remote machines. We call them a load generators. These generators could be a physical machine or a cloud-based machine such as EC2, EC2 or Azure machine, Azure VM or any VM, cloud-based VM or a physical VM. So based on the number of use that you're going to perform, you could have a load generators as you want. Once you have these load generators, you can connect this load generator with the controller machines, and when you start your test in the controller machines send instructions to these load generators to perform the test. These load generators make the impact on your application servers, and one during this execution you will get a results in the matrix base. Once you get the results of into your control machine, you could get the report based on the capability of the tool. If you use a JMeter, there are certain type of graphs and reports. If you are using load runner, you have a certain type of reports. So you can have reports based on your tool, or you can collect this in raw data and you can analyze in Excel, and we can conclude the performance test results. If I summarize again, to do a performance test tool work, you need to have a script, controller machine, load generators, and with these three components, you can make the impact on server and you can collect the results in your controller machines. So also we could perform performance tests in different architectures. You could perform performance test in desktop application, you could perform in a multi-tier system, you could perform in a distributed system and virtualized system, also dynamic or cloud-based system, client-server system, mobile applications, and also embedded real-time system like airplane control system, mainframe applications as well. These are the architectures that you could perform performance testing in. When so far we have learned what is performance testing, what are the type of performance testing, what are we measuring during the performance testing, what kind of performance testing level do we have, how performance testing tool work in a typical client server environment, and what kind of architectures that you could perform performance testing. In here onward, I'm going to discuss what kind of challenges, what kind of bottlenecks that we could identify with the results that we have gained through the previous performance test execution. When it comes to the efficiency challenges, first one we say is slow response time under all load level. When it comes to the performance analysis, there are four main areas of performance bottlenecks. The first one we can identify as a slow response time under any load, which means when you're accessing application, it is always slow regardless of number of user on the system. This could make user frustrated and leave the system. Why this is happening? Possible causes for this issue is may have a bad database design or implementation. Also, this could be this is a result of network latency. If your network is not good, then you will experience very slow response time. Also, if there is a background load is affecting your application performance, it is also a cause for the bad slow performance response time. To identify these kind of tests, we don't need to have a performance test. We just keep an eye on our functionalities and usability testing, and we could identify issues there. Now we are going to learn about performance bottlenecks that could identify with the performance test. First, performance testing bottleneck that we could identify with the performance test is slow response time under all load level. This means responses are too slow regardless of the number of users. Which means when you're trying to access the application, it is really slow without even having concurrent users. For this one, possible causes could be might have a bad database design or implementation, or your network is too slow. Also, there could be a background load affecting the performance of your application. To identify these kind of issues, we may not need a performance test. We just need to keep an eye on functional testing or usability testing. Maybe we could do a single user performance analysis to identify the issue like this. With this, or if we identify these kind of issues, we have to get the precautions, preventing actions in the first place before release into the production or before even take the next step. The second challenge is slow response time in moderate to heavy load. Here we experience the response time slowdown within the normal user load. Normal user load in the sense the peak load, which means expected load user load that we have discussed in the previous slides. We have been experienced unexpected acceptable response time with the normal load. For this kind of performance issues, possible causes could be resource saturation and unpredictable background load. Main concern of this kind of issues are user get frustrated because when number of users getting increase make their actions slow. Also, resources might not be enough for cater the re- ongoing demand, and also saturations of resources that could cause different kind of issues in your system. The third point challenge that we see when we do a performance test is slow response under moderate to heavy load. It means response time will degrade along with the load. When we increase the load along with the load, your response time also get increased. Then that is also a possible cause of resource saturations and varying background loads. Concern is it will may result unacceptable slowdown within normal load range. Another type of performance bottleneck we could identify in the performance testing is error handling challenges with under heavy load. In this scenario, we can identify that response time may be in an acceptable range, but errors are degraded under high load. For this kind of scenarios, possible causes could be insufficient resource pools, undersized queues and stacks, and rapid timeout settings. If if each any of each these causes has happened, errors could occur when we increase the load on the application. Apart from main three performance bottleneck, there is another few performance challenges that we could identify during the performance test. The first one is slow response time to a user request. When user send a request to the server, if they get delayed response, it's called slow response. How could we identify the slow request? We can identify slow request but against the industry standard or define threshold. Right. So other than that, there's another potential performance bottleneck is system crash during high user demand. When sudden demand increase in an application, system could crash. There are various situations has happened like that. The issue behind this is inability to cater the sudden increment of or decrement of the load. That is another performance issue. Also, another issue we could say degraded response for large data request. If someone requests large data file or large data report or large search, then you tend to get a slow response time or degraded of the response time. Maybe you never get the requested data. So this is also another performance issue that is related to system capacity or database capacity. So this is also we could identify with the performance test. Also, there's another performance bottleneck that we could identify related to the batch task processing. Batch task processing means processing multiple records or multiple tasks in a given time. When we process this batch task, there will be a delay. Then if for this delay, there could be a most for this delay for this delay most related reason most of the time for this delay is reason for is insufficient execution time for the batch process. If lesser execution time, then it will be the reason for this. And also, when we have a real-time system, there could be a out of RAM error due to a RAM dimensioning and or partitioning issues. Apart from that, the last one is update calculation failure in real-time component. Let's say that you have process which has two part. Part one is A and part two is B. If part B is delayed, then the real-time update could be get delayed. This is also a potential performance bottleneck we could identify with the performance test. So those are the potential bottlenecks that we could identify with along with the performance test. As a summary, we have discussed what is performance test, what are the type of performance test, how performance testing tool work, what is the performance testing process, and potential bottleneck that we could identify along with the performance test. This is the first session that we are going to share with you on performance testing. In each of these points, I would like to discuss in a smaller videos and with in a detailed manner and give you a good understanding in future. If you want to know how do we approach to start a performance test more, stay tuned, subscribe to my channel. Thank you.